Today we're going to be talking about Clown in a Cornfield. Now this is based on the book by Adam Cesare, which I did read over a year ago, I think at this point. I did do a mini review over on TikTok if you're curious about my thoughts and like some examples of things I might say right now, but I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't love the book, but it's just not within my personal taste of what I prefer to read. I just don't love the slasher genre in book form. I like it in horror movies. Even still, it's not my favorite subgenre of horror, as you know. But especially in books, I feel like it's just not my favorite. I prefer to read like supernatural, paranormal, psychological type of horror novels. Also, it is YA, which I actually really love YA, and I love when an author does YA horror, and one day I hope to write something, you know, kind of like that, a YA horror of some kind. So while I had issue with like some of the writing, and the writing in itself was a little bit repetitive for me and just felt very tropey and a lot of horror cliches, I still really respect and appreciate when authors write for a younger audience, especially horror. But I do think that is one reason that a lot of people might hate Clown in a Cornfield, the movie, because it is for teens. This movie is for a younger audience. And I think a lot of people forget that, one, different things are for different people. So there are many, many different subgenres in horror. So you find your niche and what you like, and the other things, you know, you can't be too critical on because they're just not your taste. But also you need to remember when you are the target audience for something, because there are different things for different people and there are different things for different age groups. And I think Clown in a Cornfield is for a younger audience and a little bit more leaning Gen Z horror. And so I don't want my fellow millennials to criticize this movie too harshly because of that. Same with the book. It's a YA horror, so it's not going to get like as dark and disturbing as maybe some of us like our horror movies to get. Okay, so bear that in mind, but I will say I didn't love this movie, okay? So I am going to criticize it, even though I just said that. But I know I'm also probably not the audience for this. I say probably because I do love YA. I love a PG-13 horror, as you know. So I feel like I should have enjoyed this a little bit more because I love teen horror and I think it can be done really well. But this, I wasn't a huge fan of this movie. Looking for a fresh start, Quinn and her father moved to the quiet town of Kettle Springs. They soon learned the fractured community has fallen on hard times after losing a treasured factory to a fire. As the locals bicker amongst themselves and tensions boil over, a sinister, grinning clown emerges from the cornfields to cleanse the town of its burdens, one bloody victim at a time. Now, I will say this is not going to be a book-to-movie comparison in any way because it has been so long since I read the book, so I'm lost on a couple of the details. So I can't say for certain that it is a good adaptation or not, but I can say the vibe is the same. I can say like the vibe of the story that I remember from the book translated to the movie. And that's one of the first things I want to talk about is how although I didn't love the book, when this was announced, I was slightly optimistic because I feel like the slasher genre just plays out better on screen in a movie. So I prefer it in a movie form versus a book form. And I think a story like Clown in a Cornfield translates really well into movie form, so I can see why they wanted to do an adaptation of this one. Whether they will do the sequels, I'm not sure. I haven't looked into that. If there are any agreements, maybe they're seeing if this will perform well or not. But obviously there are sequels to the novel. Now, this is directed by Eli Craig, who has directed pretty much all horror comedies. That is what he is known for, and he has directed one of my favorite horror comedies of all time, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. He also did Zombieland and a movie called Little Evil, which has Adam Scott in it. I haven't seen Little Evil. I have seen Zombieland. So I think Clown in a Cornfield fits perfectly right in his filmography. I think he was a good choice for a movie like this. The budget for Clown in a Cornfield was only around $1 million, which I believe, I don't know a ton about budgets for movies. I don't really look at that too much, but I do believe it is on the lower end of the budget when it comes to horror movies, so that's impressive. Especially because there were some practical effects used, a lot actually, and I appreciated that. They spent some budget on that. I think because the actors themselves are a little bit smaller, they're not as popular, so I think that kind of saved them in the long run. And this made almost $4 million on its opening weekend, which is the highest recorded for an IFC film. So it is their best performing movie from that production company. Or distribution company. I think it's distribution company. So it's already made all its money back and then some. It's already made profit. And that's one of the reasons why I love a smaller budget movie. I will always root for them because you don't need millions and millions to make a really good horror movie specifically. I think horror is something that can be done cheap and not in like a cheap way. You know what I mean? The talent still has to be there. I think practical effects always over everything. But if you can get like smaller actors and save some money and put it in elsewhere, I think it could be a lot more affordable to make. And even though the cast was like smaller actors, I haven't seen anything else that they've been in except for the mayor who was in Abigail. I recognized him from that. Otherwise, I don't think I've seen anything else that the others have been in. But they all did really well. I think they performed their roles really well. I didn't love all the characters, but we'll get into that. But I think, you know, I'd like to see them all in a horror movie again. Sure. Okay, as usual, we're gonna go to things I liked, things I didn't like, and spoilers. We're gonna talk about spoilers because if you know, you know. I've never been able to fully talk about it because there's one reason that I didn't like the book that I can't say, and it's because it's a spoiler. So we're gonna get into it in this video. I'm gonna finally talk about my issue with the end. It's probably not what you think, but so things I liked. There's definitely a fun element with this movie. It's a YA horror, so it's campy, it's humorous at times. Well, can I say at times? It's humorous throughout the whole thing, which is also a criticism of mine. Something I disliked, which we'll get to. But there's a fun element to this. This is a fun kind of movie, not to be taken too seriously, and I think there is an audience for that, and I think there's a time and place for that, and I think these kind of movies are essential in the genre, and even if it's not my favorite movie of the year, I, again, love when all ages can enjoy horror. Now, I mentioned the performances. They were good, although over the top, but I think that came down to the writing. So while I thought the performances were done well, the writing of the characters was not my favorite. So every piece that I liked also comes with a criticism of it at the same time, which I feel like is so rare with the movie. Overall, believable enough performances, especially from the lead, our final girl. I thought she did good. Now, I do appreciate the fact it has twists and turns, but again, I don't love the twists and turns. I like that they're there because it's not just your straightforward slasher. There's something else going on and more reveals, if you will. But I'm not a huge fan of one specific reveal later. I mentioned practical effects. I'm pretty sure a lot of it was practical, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe some CGI blood and things. But overall, I feel like it's not very gory in general. There's a lot of like fake gore, if I want to say, but in general, it's YA, it's PG-13. It's not going to like push it too much. But everything that they did do did look decent. Now, I genuinely thought the clown was pretty scary. Okay, I'm not one to be scared by clowns at all, but when one is wielding a chainsaw, yeah, that's gonna get me. Yeah, I think the setting is perfect. I love the setting of this story in the book and the movie, and that's why I wish I liked it more than I do, because I love the small town, and then they throw a party for Founders Day in this old barn surrounded by cornfields. I think the setting is just prime horror. One of my favorites, you know, it's just such a great location. There's tension already built into the set. And I think that is a huge selling point for this movie, and that adds to the fun tension of it all. Especially with the clowns. The clown in the cornfield, yeah, it's creepy. Genuinely, I thought that was pretty terrifying. So I wasn't like scared, but it was like, that's really cool to look at, and it's scary. You know, so those are the things I thought the movie did pretty well. Again, they all come with their own criticisms, but still, I thought there were some good elements. It's a well done movie, especially for $1 million. Now, things I didn't like, the cheesy one-liners. Y'all, I can't with some of the humorous lines in this movie. Oh my god. I wrote down my least favorite ones, all the ones I thought were the worst ones, and I will read them all to you and reenact them in spoilers, because they were just so bad. They were very bad. And not just bad, but ill-timed. I can't with the ill-timed line delivery when it takes away all of the tension of the moment. And I think you can do horror comedies and still maintain the horror elements of it because it's still a horror. It's a slasher horror. We want that tension, and it would be lost every time someone would say a stupid line or like try to bring levity to the situation. And it's just not the time. Not the time, okay? Not every scene needs to have like a quippy line to make it funny, you know? And I think they pushed the comedy a little bit too much with just the line, the one-liners. It wasn't even like comedic elements happening. It was like just one-liners was the comedy in this movie. I personally wasn't really a fan of the soundtrack of this, and I'm really picky when it comes to music, so I will always prefer a movie do a score as opposed to actual songs. And this movie does actual songs, and that's not my favorite thing for a movie to do. There are very few movies where a score or a soundtrack stands out as like really good. But that's just my personal preference because I am so picky when it comes to music. So take that with a grain of salt. Maybe your favorite song is in this. I don't know, but I didn't like any of the music. Again, with the characters, I want to touch on that again. They're just caricatures of like horror tropes, like each side character, like herself, obviously a girl moving to a small town to get away from trauma with her dad, you know, and she has to start at a new school, make new friends. It's all been done before, right? And then all of her side, you know, all of her friends are very caricatures themselves. So all of that is very tropey and very derivative of many, many other horror stories that have been done before, which again, there's value to that. There's familiarity, but I do want that plus something else going on, or someone to feel a little bit unique. So that's basically all the commentary I want to say in regards to what I liked and didn't like without spoilers. So we're just gonna get into spoilers, I think. Overall, I give this 2.5 because there is value in it, but I didn't like the movie myself. But I do appreciate a movie for a younger audience. And I think if you are Gen Z or if you have a child that's Gen Z, I think they would get a kick out of it. But it reads younger, so obviously it's going to be for a certain audience. And I'm not a part of that, even though I love teen horror. I still think my criticisms stand when it comes to that. So yeah, let's get into spoilers. The first thing I want to start with before we get into all the stupid lines, we'll just save that for last, I guess, are the twists. So there are two kind of reveals in this. One feels very random and one feels stupid. I don't know. The random one is that her love interest turns out to be gay and his actual love interest is Rust. So we have Cole and Rust are actually, you know, they have a history there. And to me, I feel like it was better in the book because I don't know, it still feels a little bit random because there isn't enough like backstory there, but you do definitely get more backstory in the book itself from what I remember. We don't get a lot. We don't get a lot of the history of Cole and Rust being friends back in the day, except for maybe 1 or 2 lines in the movie itself. So the scene just felt random, and then we have a reveal of it later, whereas in the book, it felt a little bit more fleshed out, and the story, there was like more backstory to it, you know what I mean? So that was just like the random reveal that I didn't like how they executed in the movie. The full reveal is who's friend of the clown, or clowns, I should say, and I feel like it's so obvious in the movie and in the book, honestly. It's all the old people of the town. This is a generation versus generation type of story, okay? The old people hate the younger generation. They like tradition. They don't want anyone bringing anything new to the town. They want to stay in their old ways. And anyone who disrupts that gets murdered by Friend of the Clown. They all dress up, all the old people dress up in the clown costume and kill off the teens of the town. The only thing I don't mind that. I think that's fine. It's not that exciting to me, I feel like, although there is some like commentary there, but it's not like thrilling. I don't love that, but it's fine. What I really hated in the book and the movie is that it's Cole's dad. He's the mayor. He's the one who is running it all, and he wants to kill Cole. And I never liked that, because he wanted to kill Cole because he thinks Cole is responsible for killing his daughter. And that makes no sense. You want to kill your only other child because he might be responsible for killing your other child. So then you will be childless. That's what you would prefer versus just having one dead child. Again, there was so much more explored in that history of Cole and his sister in the book. Like that was a huge part. I feel like they played out more in the actual book, and it was barely touched on. It was like mildly touched on in 2 scenes in the movie. So while I like the approach that they did and like how this translates to screen, I feel like they didn't do a good enough job executing the actual story, the backstory of the characters, because that's something that the book definitely did better. And overall, I think the book is better because you get way more story and more backstory to pivotal characters and like reasons why, because the reveal for him killing his son is so random. Like, I don't like that. I don't like the idea. It just isn't believable. It's not believable. And I actually really, really, really hate the end of the book, which was not included in the movie. But of course, he was setting up for a sequel, which I don't think I will ever read unless maybe more movies are made and I am just curious. I don't know. Maybe I will. Can't never say never, right? But that's irrelevant to the review. I just thought I'd point out I really hate the last like epilogue or whatever of the book itself. That should not have been there. I don't need that. Anyway, the motive of the clown killing and like the town people and the dad killing his son and like wanting to kill all his friends. I don't like that. I really don't like that reveal. I feel like I don't know. That's all I have to say about that, actually. Let's talk about all of the silly lines that were in this movie. Okay. Actually, some of it was a little bit funny because they are really driving home the generational thing that this is Gen Z and they don't know how to work a rotary phone. And I thought that was funny. That was like the one part that kind of made me laugh because they were trying to call 911 using a phone in this old house and it's a rotary phone and they're like, where are the buttons? So that I will give credit. I thought it was a little bit cheesy because I think some Gen Z knows what a rotary phone is, right? Do you guys know what a rotary phone is? To my Gen Z audience, do you know how to use a rotary? I don't know. I don't know what you guys know, but she loved to drop an F-bomb in every quippy line that she had, and I don't care about swearing, like whatever. One of them that had, in my opinion, bad timing, it was the reveal after Cole and Rust, like, kiss on screen. It cuts to Quinn and she's like, such a confusing fucking night. Okay, I just didn't like that line. That line right after, anyway. She gets in the truck, in a truck, to try to drive away. It's a stick shift. And she screams, she's like, when your dad wants to teach you how to drive stick, you fucking say yes. First of all, that's too long of a line to be a quippy one-liner in that scene, because there are clowns coming. They are surrounding you, and that is too wordy, you know? It's too wordy of a line. Again, the F-bomb, don't need it. Again, the pointing out, she's talking to no one. She's talking to us, basically. Who are you talking to? The clowns around you? Like, I can't with the one-liners to nobody. I forgot what the context was of this line, but it stood out to me as really stupid. And she said, I haven't been here very long, but I hear it's fucking lovely in the spring. Again with the F-bomb. Every time there has to be. And they had just been attacked, I think. So they had already seen people die. Some of their friends have died. And he's like, well, welcome to Kettle Springs. Cole says this. And she's like, well, I haven't been here very long, but I hear it's fucking lovely in the spring. It's just not a good joke. Not a good joke. At the worst point in time, your friends have died. The last scene was painful. That really, I took a half star off just for that, honestly. It was, should I make it a 2 because of this? I hated the last scene. Obviously, she survives, Cole survives. I think that's it. High body count, by the way. Love that. Everyone dies. So that's great. Cole and Rust are together and they come to say goodbye to her as she's about to drive away for college, and they give her a gift and it's a box. She opens it. It's a retractable baton stick, okay? as a self-defense tool. And she's like, wow, just what I've always wanted, in a super like bitchy tone. Okay. She's like, I hope I don't have to use it against a bunch of killer clowns. Where's the trauma? Again, they're trying to keep it light. I get it. They're not going to push the trauma angle because it's a lighthearted movie. But I just can't take it seriously at all, like the story. And then as they're leaving, she's like, stay away from old people. And her dad's like, hey, I can't. This is the most corny thing. And she's like, I mean a bunch of old clowns that want to kill you. I can't. That whole exchange, stay away from old people. Hey, dad insulted. First of all, I can't. I'm not even going to explain that one. I can't, whatever. Just so many of those lines, like endless amounts of one-liners like that just make it so unserious. And I feel like we can handle a little bit of seriousness and keep the comedy, you know? People can still be cracking jokes here and there, but make it better timed, you know what I mean? Like, not... Anyway, let me know if that was just me annoyed by all of these one-liners. Okay, it's not just about my opinion. I would love to hear what you guys think. That is all I have to say about Clown in a Cornfield. But leave a comment down below. What did you think about this movie? I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.